Imagine a cozy cafe. Everything's dark oak wood and inviting. It smells of freshly baked cinnamon rolls and freshly brewed coffee. There are books on display and a cat sleeping soundly on the counter. The place is filled with peace and calm, and there are people enjoying their drinks while reading or writing. There are no computers or phones to be seen. It's as if time has stopped and there's nowhere to rush. In another room, there's a group of people engaged in a quiet conversation, making new connections and learning new things. It's a friendly atmosphere of a tight-knit community that welcomes anyone new. The entire space is filled with magic. Magic that comes from books, chocolate, and mysterious liquid bakes. But also from friendship, good conversation, and the cats who always keep you company and deliver exactly what you need. Welcome back to the Cat Coach Café. Me and the cat coaches, Aragorn, Apricot, and Prince, are certainly beyond happy to see you again. And if you're new here, welcome. This is a cozy space where we meet once a month to tune to the season, revive some old seasonal traditions, mostly influenced by my Czech origins, and meet people from all walks of life who all live catfully and with catitude in one way or another. There is loads of exciting things waiting for you in this episode, including an interview with our guest, the Yogi Witch, Bethany Ellison, who will explain all about the benefits of witchcraft for your yoga practice, why it blends so well with yoga, and why you're likely practicing witchcraft without even realizing. We will also talk about who a witch actually is and how old fairy tales shaped us. And don't worry, we will also get to the most pressing topic, which is cats. On that note, I will also share some cozy October reading tips, film tips, and of course, some of the cat coach's wisdom. So sit comfortably, prepare your hot drink of choice, which we're gonna need in just a moment for our short drink meditation to help us slow down, and use this time together to give yourself some much needed break and some me time. If you can't dedicate the full length of the episode in one go, you're welcome to separate it along the month and thus create pockets of coziness whenever you need it. But whatever you do, I'd like to encourage you to not multitask for once while you listen. Just give yourself that break. Now, with all that out of the way, let's start with our short drink meditation. Close your eyes and take a couple of deep breaths. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. And one more. Inhale and audible exhale. Now take your mug and with your eyes still closed, smell your drink. What can you smell? What are the scents? Can you identify them? If so, let them take you away. What do they remind you of? What feelings do they stir? What emotions, memories, or ideas? Inhale the scents once more and let yourself go places with the scents. Does your drink take you to a sunny place, or perhaps to a distant memory? Or does it inspire a new idea? Just let your imagination flow. Then take your first slow sip and notice how it makes you feel. Is it a feeling of warmth? Is it refreshing, energizing perhaps? Does it bring you peace or calm? Or simply, does it make you feel cozy? Whatever it is, notice it and make a mental note. Take one more sip and let that feeling flood you. And then continue drinking at your own pace. And don't forget to open your eyes. Now let's tune to the season. I love Octobers. If I could press pause and stop time, I would do it in October. It always seems to pass by too quickly, but such is the reality of the most beautiful things. They never last too long, which makes them so incredibly special. Thus, Octobers being the perfect teachers in the beauty of impermanence and change as the ruling principles of our lives. I've never been one of the people who would find October or autumn sad. For me, it brings contentment and peace like no other month, as if somehow giving me permission to slow down and let go. The autumn equinox on September 22nd announced the waning of the sun's power. The daylight is gradually getting shorter. The sun no longer has the power to warm the earth, so it pulls us inward, from the outside into our homes, but also into our hearts. It is a time of contemplation, humility, and giving thanks. It is time to harvest what we have sown, literally and figuratively. For our ancestors, October, and especially its end, was a real turning point of the year, when the agricultural cycle ended. It is therefore an ideal time to reflect on what hopes and desires we have invested in this year, and to evaluate how we have managed to realize them. It is time to finish projects and let go of what is no longer needed, both physically and internally. And after a proper internal cleaning, it is time to sow the new seeds and new ideas, new hopes, which will rest for now while gaining strength so they can bloom in spring. So, what are those seeds, ideas, and hopes that you're pulled towards to right now? What would you like to plant? What do you need to let go of in order to make space for it? And what are you ready to let go of as you watch the leaves fall this October? I myself have been feeling such a strong pull towards major decluttering ever since September started, really. This is mainly decluttering of my physical spaces, but I feel it goes hand in hand with decluttering on the soul level too, which is probably why the call is so powerful. There's just something about physically letting go of things and making space that creates space in your heart and in your mind. And then simultaneously work on only the things that truly matter, those that are essentially the things you come here to do. Something I only realized when talking to our today's guest. So definitely stay tuned for that. But before we get to it, why don't we take a little decluttering challenge together so we can perhaps get to the bottom of who we are during the month that nature does just the same. That said, October is also a time of endings. One cycle is ending, and so it may come with some much needed goodbyes and sadness. I do have to say, I never felt that so intensely as this year, especially since the news of Robert Redford's passing, someone who influenced my life so profoundly, including my previous film career. I guess I've been mourning a part of myself that I let go of when I left the film world and never truly acknowledged that loss properly until now. But by doing so, it also brought me back to myself and the part I've been missing. So do not resist the goodbyes, the grief, the sadness that also comes with this season. Welcome it, because it always brings something new. In this case, it finally made me start the film club, an idea I've been toying with in my mind for at least a year now. It never felt like the right time, but now it does, in honor of Robert Redford. In case you're interested, I wrote a very personal piece on the influence Redford had on my life over on Substack, so do feel free to check it out. At the end of the piece, there's actually an invitation into the film club, and I would love for you to join us there. Now, what are some of the goodbyes you're facing right now? And what new possibilities might they open? Take your pen and journal on this question. Do you need to say goodbye anywhere in your life? And if you would like to do some more October journaling, join us in the Positive Mind Club on moniforce.substack.com, where we gather every month on the first day of the month to journal and set intentions for the month ahead, but also to tune into ourselves. Basically, learn to live more catfully and live according to the 4 truths of the cat, which will be revealed in the Positive Mind Club. As with the film club, I do hope I'll see you there. Hey guys, this is Prince, your cat coach, and I wanted to pop in and just briefly share some seasonal thoughts with you. You see, I love sitting by the window at this time of year and watching the leaves fall. I would spend my whole mornings like that. I don't know how much time passes, not that I care. I'm just too invested in simply being, observing, and reflecting. Yes, believe it or not, we cats reflect much more often than you would think. It's pretty much a daily habit, but there's just something different about those October reflections. I'm sure you can relate. It's like a beautiful goodbye, like when you finish your favorite meal and you're both sad it's gone, but also somehow excited because it was so good, and because you also know there will be more in the future if you only just wait and take some rest in between. Or like when you humans finish reading a beautiful book which you're reluctant to let go of, but at the same time intrigued by the one that comes next. So basically, what I came here to tell you today is this. Don't be afraid to let go. Don't savor that last bite for too long, because otherwise it will lose all its flavor and become stale. And stale food, well, every cat knows that's no good. Finish it with the confidence of the next meal coming at just the right time, or with the confidence of the tree that sheds all the leaves, not worrying whether it's gonna grow new ones next spring. I mean, I watch this every year, and I can confidently tell you they really do grow back each time. How marvelous is that? As does the next meal appear in my bowl. So, Don't worry too much. Slow down enough to appreciate all you're letting go of. But then, well, just let it go. If you'd like to read more from your cat coaches, make sure to check out Cat Coach Diaries at my Substack, either at catcoachdiaries.substack.com or at moneyforce.substack.com. Both addresses will get you there, and you will also find them in the show notes. Now, how about we dive into the season of the witch next? All right then, let's welcome our today's guest, Bethany Ellison, also known as the Yogi Witch, who will talk us through some witchy magic, explain who actually is a witch, and why she calls herself one, and why witchcraft blends so beautifully with yoga. We will also discuss the role of cats as witches' familiars and talk about Bethany's own beloved cat. But we started our discussion with yoga and its healing powers.
So yoga has found me in my life. Actually, I was thinking about this the other day, a number of ways. I can remember doing it when I was very young as part of a kind of thing we have here in Britain called the Duke of Edinburgh. And I can remember doing yoga for that, for my sports thing of that. And I did a little bit of in university, but I actually hated it. I didn't get yoga. And years later, then, after I got out of my master's, I was very anxious, and my doctor at the time recommended something holistic. He was like, it'd be great if you got back in the body and did some moving. So my mum took me to a hot yoga class here in Wales, and I loved it. I had never known peace like it. I can remember crying in my shavasana because it was just so beautiful. And then from there on, I just became addicted. I would go 3 times a week. I would be doing classes on my own at home. I would be kind of studying it. And then after about a year, my teacher at the time suggested that I did my YTT, so my yoga teacher training. And from there on, it's just been a journey that's led to here now.
So in which ways did yoga bring that healing?
It was just being able, because when you're anxious, you're very much either stuck in the past or you're very focused of the future. And yoga really allowed me to actually just kind of anchor and sit in the present moment, which is something I think we all very much struggle with. And for that 1 hour on the mat, I would think about nothing else except my left and my rights, or not falling into the person next to me, and thinking to myself, Jesus, this is so hard. When is it going to be over? And it was such a grounding ritual that I did, and I just loved it. I just loved being able to kind of sit with my feelings, sit with my body, and also find that sense of appreciation for myself. Coming from a place of depression, anxiety, where I was after my master's, and I would very much, my intrusive thoughts would very much rule my life. It was amazing to find appreciation for my mind and for my body. And my teacher would always say, which I say now in my classes, that give yourself acknowledgement for the strength it takes to come to the mat. And it's something that I've carried with me. And it was because of that reason, it was so healing and so lovely and just wonderful.
I love how you said that you were thinking like, gosh, this is so hard, because
Every time.
that's what I always feel like, you don't actually even have time to think about anything else, which is another great benefit in yoga, that you just can't think of anything else, because the moment you do, you fall.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah.
And it's so interesting. I do challenges with people. I will make them just stand on one leg in like a tree pose, and I will do, especially when I do my anxiety workshops, I will make people breathe very fast, and I'll make them move very fast, and then I will click my fingers and say, like, let's be still. Just concentrate on this one spot, concentrate on this tree pose, just concentrate on staying here. And watching how they naturally get back into a kind of comfortable rhythm with their breath and how they hold it. And then I will say to them, did you think about any of the things that have been on your mind? And they'll go, no. And it's such an empowering feeling because, you know, anxiety in that kind of sense can very much take over your life. And I think being able to just concentrate on not falling and thinking, when is it going to be over? Because I hate it. I think it's such a human experience. And it's so, yeah, it's just very humbling, yoga. Even now, sometimes halfway through yoga, I think, oh my God, when is it going to be over? It's my legs are burning.
So, where does into your yoga journey come witchcraft? What do these two have in common? Because you're obviously the Yogi Witch, and you often, on your channels, you combine these two. So, how does one complement the other?
Well, I think, even going back to basics, they're both ancient traditions, very much kind of rooted in personal transformation and kind of the connection with the universe. And, when I had my witchcraft practice before my yoga practice, I would struggle with certain rituals or certain tools for witchcraft. And then when I would step onto yoga, I kind of naturally brought those intentions with me. And then I would start doing my rituals on the mat, and then I would do my spell work on the mat. And then it eventually became that my physical movement, my breath work, my meditation there was my witchcraft practice. I think both practices are very much kind of encouraging us to kind of tune into one's inner self and to kind of harness our intuition and kind of work with the energies of ourselves, of the world around us, to kind of heal ourselves, to embrace wisdom and to embrace growth. Very much both kind of practices encourage us to go about the world with a sense of kindness and compassion to ourselves, to others. And I think they're both very beautiful practices, very much encouraging us to kind of live our lives in the most authentic way, in kind of honoring our highest self. I don't know. I think they're just both so beautiful, and I think they intertwine so easily when you actually do them physically and spiritually, if that makes sense.
It's interesting that based on what you just said, it feels like that yoga actually made you understand or use witchcraft better. Like,
Yes,
yeah,
very much so, very much
yeah,
so. I think witchcraft can be very complicated. I think, especially with social media, same with yoga, it gets very complicated. But even just coming to the mat, which some days is very difficult to do, and sitting there, and I begin all my practices, both personal and when I'm teaching, with an intention setting. What is it you're wanting from your practice? To feel, release, or welcome. And when you get moving and that chi, that prana is flowing, you feel so connected to kind of yourself, your mind, your body, your soul, your breath, and the world around you fades. And it's very easy, or it's easier to tap into that sense of magic that we all have. And so when you step off the mat, you feel so invigorated and empowered. After every vinyasa, you're like, yes, I did that. And it's an kind of an empowerment that you take beyond the mat. Then you go about your day-to-day life just feeling so almost in love with yourself, for everything you've overcome, everything you've achieved. And I think, yes, long story short, yoga really did allow me to delve deeper into my witchcraft practice and to kind of see it on a different platform. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense because I was myself, I was interested in Buddhism a lot, and I read books about it. And then I started doing yoga, and it was only through yoga that I was able to make sense of what I studied in Buddhism. So it's really interesting how the sort of philosophy, whether it's Buddhism or whether it's witchcraft, needs that movement element so we can truly make sense. Like, yeah, movement as well as the philosophy, which both is yoga as well, right? You just need
Yeah.
to be together. You can't really separate it, otherwise it doesn't really make sense.
No, it doesn't. And I think sometimes the the physical aspect of yoga overtakes the spiritual aspect of yoga, where when you break down yogic philosophy and teachings, the kind of asanas are a very small aspect of it. They're such a small aspect, but that movement allows you to kind of want to explore the philosophical aspect. You know, I often find that people join my online stuff or in person with that kind of want to, you know, do a headstand or the splits, or they want to get more flexible, and then by the end they always will message me and ask about recommendations for books or ways they can take this philosophy from their movements into their everyday life. And I think that that kind of movement gets the chi, gets the energy flowing, so you feel inspired to keep searching. And that's where then people start to deepen their yoga practice and become yogis for life, because they're constantly searching, they're constantly learning. And that's why I say to people that, you know, yoga is a practice for life, because it never gets old. You never get bored with it, because there's so much to learn. We're constantly students in yoga, and it's the same with witchcraft. You're constantly learning, you're constantly evolving. And I think that's what's so beautiful about it, is that it goes with you for every part of your life and every chapter. It just flows kind of effortlessly with you through it.
Yeah. For those of our listeners who are maybe a little intimidated by the term witchcraft or don't really know what to imagine under that term in today's world, how would you explain that to someone? What it is actually in our days, and well, not in just in our days and times, but what it really is.
I think witchcraft, it is an intimidating word. Whenever I tell anybody I practice witchcraft or I consider myself a witch, I can see the look on their faces. But I think witchcraft can mean so much. It can mean a religious aspect, whether that be paganism or Wiccan, or like me, it can be the actual craft, just the practice of it. And it's just a tradition that's deeply rooted in kind of finding your place and connection with the natural world, with understanding the power that you hold via your thoughts and your words and the way that you treat others. For me, I use the term witch personally as kind of a reclaiming of that word. Sorry, it's been so kind of bashed and very much, trying to get my sentence correct, very much kind of ridiculed, or it comes with a lot of history. And I think it's not a very good history in many ways that it's taught. When you think of witch, an image immediately evokes of an old woman living in the woods that's evil, when in reality, historically, witches were none of these things. They were wise women, they were healers, they were midwives, and that word got tainted, you know. And calling myself a witch is just reclaiming that word and using it as power, like all these women and these people that came beforehand. But I think, to begin with, if you're looking to begin witchcraft practice, I would just start off with saying that you're just exploring your magical practice, your magic, and then see where you go. I meet many people who, you know, who practice witchcraft but don't call it witchcraft because they don't feel comfortable with that term, and they don't call themselves witch, which is totally fair. I think it's something that you can label yourself if you want to, or if you don't. It's something that's so open, and everybody is welcome into it.
When I first noticed the trend of the witchcraft on social media, and with more and more books coming out about the topic, I was skeptical at first, I have to say. I wasn't sure what this all new craze was about, suddenly women calling themselves witches. But then I started looking into it myself because I was curious. And I was really surprised that being a witch is really just being a healer, like some kind of a shaman, and being in tune with nature, its cycles, and that all it really is just another ancient practice that helps us connect with the natural world as well as with ourselves. Like so many rituals surrounding yoga, for example. like mantras and burning scents. That's what's considered witchcraft. So yeah, I think a lot of us actually practice it without us realizing, just not labeling it. But yeah, it was really surprising to find out that it really is just a lifestyle that,
Yeah, it is.
close to nature, that for some reason gets a really bad reputation.
Yeah, it is. It's a very ancient practice. My way, I actually studied the history of witchcraft and kind of demonology in both my undergraduate degree and in my master's degree. So I came at witchcraft from very much a historical perspective. And when I speak about the claiming of the word witch, it's inspired by these stories and these lives of these women that were persecuted and in many cases obviously executed for witchcraft. And when you get down into like the nitty gritty of it, these were just women that lived in tune with the seasons. They worked with herbs, they worked with the moon, they worked in communities, close knit, often kind of female focused communities. And historically, that was very frightening to kind of the patriarchy and to kind of men and the Catholic Church and the Christian Church in many ways. And so hence why the word witch came up and was a way to separate these kind of communities and to kind of create suspicion between women and between maybe these certain women who lived by the seasons and who chose to go their own path and didn't follow perhaps just a one god. They maybe followed many gods or maybe no gods at all. They just followed the kind of goddess within. And that's what I talk about when I say about reclaiming that word. It is in honor of all those men, women and children who were persecuted for witchcraft, all over the world, because it's so interesting that it wasn't ever evil or bad. It was just holistic and love and nature based, and that's what I find so fascinating about it. And this revival of witchcraft, I completely agree. There's some things I see that I'm like, well, I don't know if I would consider that witchcraft, but I think it's nice to see it open back up and be explored by people all over again and by communities and stuff like that. So I think, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Speaking of books about witchcraft, are there any that you would recommend to people who would just want to get to know a little bit about it, not to get too intimidated, as I said, would you have any tips? Or maybe even like, as you mentioned, the historical aspect of it. So yeah, where would you start?
I mean, there's so much to delve into the history of it. In terms of, oh God, there's so much. In terms of, like, if you're exploring your magical practice, the book Witch by Lisa Lister is a very inspiring book. It speaks about female empowerment, and it also discusses in there whether or not you want to call yourself a witch. That's a great book to start. The one that started me off is a tiny little book I bought in Glastonbury called The Little Book of Witchcraft by Astrid Carvel. That's a great book to just give you kind of like an overlook basic of it. And then maybe the other one would be Into Witching by Mia Magic, which is basically encourages people to kind of tap back into that sense of kind of psychic ability, to that kind of gut instinct of kind of trusting ourselves. So they would be kind of the top 3 books I would recommend. That's not too overwhelming because there's so much literature out there for witchcraft, but they would be my top 3 books I would recommend.
And how did you actually get into witchcraft yourself? What attracted you to it other than the historical point of view? But what actually made you practice it? What is it to you personally?
I think it's just about encouraging you to kind of trust yourself again. And I think, this is why I fell in love with the actual practice of witchcraft was when I came out of my kind of anxiety and my depression after my master's, because I'd been through some difficult times. It was all about learning to trust myself again, because I'd made many, well, I would say bad decisions in terms of relationships or situations. and trusted. I went against my gut and trusted what someone else told me, even though I didn't fully believe it. And this sense of magical practice, sense of witchcraft, really encouraged me to kind of listen to myself and to know that I'm the number one person who's going to look out for me because I know what's best for me and I know what I want to explore. And I think, you know, really encouraging ourselves to trust ourselves again is huge. And you're right, it has got such bad kind of connotations with that, which is crazy because we should all be encouraged to kind of trust ourselves and to trust our instinct and to trust our kind of thoughts with certain situations and intentions. And it's a mad world that we are encouraged not to do that, especially as women. We are very much encouraged not to do that and to follow the system. But I think there seems to be a bit of a revival where people now are allowing themselves to make decisions that suits them best rather than follow maybe what society tells you should do.
Yeah, and even like you said, reclaiming that word witch, because that usually when you call someone a witch, it doesn't really mean a good thing, right? So that's where it all starts. Like,
No, it doesn't. But it's only ever referred to as to women, isn't it? If you know, it's never, no one ever calls a man a witch. They will always ever refer to, most derogatory names are focused around, are female focused in any shape or way. So that's why, it's so powerful to call myself witch. And I get a bit of a kick every time I say it to someone. And they say, I see their reaction or they'll say, oh, witches aren't real. And I'm like, oh, all right then, just carry on moving. Because it doesn't have to. I spoke about this recently on my social media that when I called myself witch, I was very nervous to do so on social media and to my friends or to kind of my husband's friends. But just saying the word was so empowering to me and standing by it and knowing what it meant to me, it's so powerful. So, whether or not people decide to call themselves witches or just say that they explore a magical practice, there's so much empowerment in doing so and just saying that you believe in these kind of things, in these ancient traditions, very much what we all believed in at one point or another.
it's yeah, I love how you say that you knew what it means for you, calling yourself witch, sort of letting go of what everybody else thinks about it. Just, that's really the important bit. It's funny because I actually grew up in a family where we use the word witch a lot, but in a good sense, actually, because here in the Czech Republic, on the 30th of April, we have a day that's called the Witches' Day or Burning Witches. No witches were burned on this day, but it's connected again to fall tradition and the end of winter and lighting up the bonfires. Yeah, exactly. And my parents married on this night, and my dad would
I love this.
And my dad would always say that you can only marry a witch on a night like that.
Oh, so, I love this.
I grew up with my mom being the witch, but in a good sense that she bewitched him, to fall in love with her, sort of. So for me, it was always a good word. And I remember with one of my ex-partners, early in our relationship, I would say, I'm a witch. And he would be like, what? Why would you say that? Because for him, it meant something really bad. But for me, it was just sort of like, giving yourself a bit of, color and, being a bit more interesting. But definitely a good thing. But yeah, that really made me like stop and realize that, yeah, it has this really bad connotation. And that was after that, the whole trend sort of started. And yeah, but so basically when I came back to this concept of witchcraft this year myself at the beginning of the year, I was like, well, I've always sort of called myself a witch, so I'm just going to discover what it is. And when I started discovering it, it was funny because it sort of brought me back to my childhood and to the fact that I was sort of calling myself that. And now it sort of made perfect sense because I am so connected to nature. I love the seasons, love living seasonally. And even I always joke these days, I tell everyone that it makes perfect sense because I've always been someone who would be so scared of churches. I've never felt good inside a church. I'm like, I must have been a witch in my past life.
Appreciate that
So,
so much. It's interesting though when you think about it. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Depending on the witch stay, it is, and like I'm very similar in many ways. You know, I'm from Wales. I am a Welsh witch, and there were no um, executions or trials of witches in Wales because I'm from a country that is very much focused on the magical. I mean,
that's true.
the
Yeah.
symbol on the flag
Mm,
is a dragon, and it's very much rooted in schooling here. We have a very famous book in Wales called the Mabinion, and it's basically folk tales, fairy tales, and they are so ingrained in Wales. You know, when you go to the countryside and stuff like this, it's so beautiful. You know, up in North Wales, they believe that a lot of the mountains are dragons sleeping, waiting for the prince to come and wake them
mm,
up and stuff like this. And there's such a connection to the sea. And yeah, so I grew up in a kind of culture that very much embraced the fairy aspect. I mean, if you've ever seen traditional Welsh dress, it is a witch's hat. That is what we dressed up
mm,
every day on. It is a St. David's, but it is a saint day. But it's so deeply rooted, this sense of fairies and dragons and witches
mm,
and wizards and magical beings in Wales, that it didn't seem that crazy to me when I
mm,
started delving into it. I was like, oh, this makes sense. Surely this is how we
mm,
all should be. And it's very interesting, isn't it, where you're from and the culture that you're from, how that influences how you see
mm,
magic and witchcraft and all of that. I find it so fascinating. It's so
mm.
fascinating. It's just so it's so interesting. Yeah, because you know another example in Britain is down in Cornwall. That Cornwall is so far away from just everything. You know, and they have a lot of witchcraft in Cornwall. They do. There's a place called Boscastle, where the witchcraft museum is, and there would be witches that would these harbour villages sell sailors the wind in order to help them with their plotting and stuff like that. But because Cornwall, same as Wales and Scotland, where you know a lot of witchcraft came out, was so far away from Christian England, it was very difficult to get to, that Christian England kind of left them to it. And this is how the kind of culture, you know, like the Piskies and Cornwall and stuff like that kind of came up because Christian England kind of left them alone because they were like, this too far, it's too wild to get there, just leave them to it. And it's yeah, it's interesting that it's still ingrained in it. But I bet if anybody ever delved deeper into their kind of country's history, especially with folklore. You know, my undergraduate degree, my dissertation was actually focused on the Brothers Grimm and about the actual religious warnings rooted in the fairy tales, which I loved because I mean it ruined fairy tales for me because they're very dark. But it's so interesting how they are ingrained in our lives, even though you're not fully aware of them. You kind of are, but not. It'd be interesting. It'd be wonderful if maybe schools brought it in more to kind of delving into this kind of folklore history because it was so deeply rooted and it it really did encourage our kind of moral behavior because people were very frightened about what would happen. It's just so I could talk about this for hours. I get so into the history aspect of it.
I am so interested in this, so please keep going.
Oh, I just love it. I find the history of witchcraft so interesting, because I often say, I've done a lot of presentations of the history of witchcraft, even just like an introduction to it. And, if I ever ask people, like, name me what witchcraft do you know, they will always mention Salem. They will always mention the American witchcraft trials, which obviously is tragic, but in comparison to the European witch hunt is so small. I mean, there were villages in, certain areas of Germany that were completely wiped out of women because the prosecution was so big and it was so rife. And it's so interesting, isn't it? How, I don't know, maybe it just got kind of lost, and obviously America's a lot bigger place, and they've made a very big deal about the history of witchcraft in America, where I feel like in Europe and in Britain, it's just happened so much that people were like, it's best we don't talk about it anymore.
You mentioned the Brothers Grimm's and how it's rooted in our culture more than we realize. Could you just expand on that a little bit?
Well, so my dissertation was basically focused on, oh God, it was so long ago now, about 13 years ago. It was basically, I focused on Little Red Riding Hood, and I focused on Hansel and Gretel. I also focused on one more, but I can't remember what that was. And it basically, it began very much as stories to warn children about kind of the danger of nature. So, you know, in terms of like the wolf and stuff like that, being literally a wolf, especially in these great big forests of Germany and stuff like that. And with Hansel and Gretel, the kind of warnings of wandering off to an extent, but disobeying parents and stuff like that. And eventually they became religious warnings then about what happens if you disobey your parents and the sins that's involved. For example, in Hansel and Gretel, it's gluttony, and then in Red Riding Hood, the original ones, it's a sexual sin, which is horrific to know about a fairy tale now. But they are so embedded in us that we're all a little bit terrified of wandering off the wrong path, if that makes sense, because
It's true,
these
yeah.
fairy tales have told us that what would happen if you did go off the wrong path, like the consequences would be, you know, great. And I mean, I remember being terrified of wolves when I was a kid, and I very vividly remember my mum having to tell me that there was no wolves in Britain. And I was like, are you sure, Mum? Because I'm not walking to Nan's if there's going to be a wolf somewhere. It's so ridiculous now. But it's just so interesting, I think. And I think, you know, even in terms of Disney movies and movies you see now on Netflix, they are all based on Brothers Grimm in some small manner. It's just, yeah, I think fairy tales are very fascinating. I think even now, fairy tales invoke something in us, maybe
Yeah,
a sense
for
of
sure.
nostalgia, also a mini sense of fear, and also wonder. I think they're just so beautiful, fairy tales, that, you know, I
Yeah.
spend my October living via fairy tales.
When you said that we're so terrified of what would happen if we went off the track of the path, but yeah, it's really deep, because that's something we struggle with even on in daily life, in sort of like a philosophical level, right? Like, what would happen if I just didn't do what people expect me to do, you know, went off the track? It's really interesting that it could actually be coming from something so, you know, from a fairy tale pretty much. Because why we do have that fear?
I think there's so, yeah, I think this fear is so ingrained in us about doing the wrong thing, even on this like a level of a children's story of, you know, the fairy tales about the consequences of what happened. You know, I mean, they always ended up in death. No one ever got out. It was always in death.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you mix that then with, you know, the witch hunt of what would happen if you didn't follow what society expected of you. And even now, I think there's a slight fear in it. I think the next generation, I imagine, are a lot more confident. But, you know, even not working a 9 to 5 job, not being married by the age of 30, not having kids by the age of 40, or do you know what I mean? Like, there's set patterns that are followed out, even as basic as, you know, it's a ridiculous example, but even as basic as a wedding. You know, I got married all in reverse. I eloped in Vegas. I had a wedding party, and then I had a hen do. And I remember people saying to me, "Oh, it's not meant to be that way." And I responded with, "Why? Like, but why can't it be that way? It makes no difference. It makes no difference to you." And like, it's interesting, isn't it, that we're very much told, especially as women, I would argue, to never go off the beaten track, to never go against the grain, because the consequences are so great. But it all roots that back then to kind of trusting that intuition that you have. I remember after doing my master's, in history and in witchcraft, I found very big depression, and I ended up coming back home, and I didn't know what to do with my life. And I had this degree, and there's pressure to maybe go, into teaching or into a PhD. Probably never would have done that, but there's pressure to do something with this degree. I'd spent this money, and I remember after I did my teacher training, because I just did it as fun, I didn't have any intention to teach. I remember going to my husband and saying, I want to do this. And he's always been encouraging. So he was like, go on then. And then when I went to my friends at the time and I said, this is what I want to do, they were so confused. They were like, well, why? You've got this degree. It's not good money. It's not a 9 to 5. And I just remember, I remember saying to them, it will work. I know it will work. And that was the time where I fell so deep into witchcraft then, because I trusted it so deeply. Like, I knew it was going to work, and I knew it was going to happen. And, touch wood, it has been, my studio's been thriving for a number of years now. My online studio is got a lot of members, and I'm very, very grateful. And even doing that was going off the beaten path by not following, or, even, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I don't know, I could rant about this for hours, but I just think it's very interesting what happens when we do go off the beaten path. Like, unless it's going to physically harm you.
Yes.
I always say to people, like, well, what do you have to lose? Like, I remember saying with the studio, like, okay, if it doesn't work, I'll go and get a job. Nothing will come of this. If it doesn't work, I'll give myself 1 year. If it doesn't work, I will go and pursue something else. But at least I know I tried and I did it, and I followed my intuition with that, and luckily it did work out for me. But I think people are very often frightened to go off the beaten path, or just to trust themselves. But I think the next generation, because the 9 to 5, I feel, is slipping away to some extent. I think maybe COVID had a big impact on this. So I don't think that it'll be a structured life, will be maybe for the next generation and for the generation continuing. I think they'll allow themselves to kind of follow what they want, especially with the world of like TikTok and stuff. God, I sound so old then saying, the world of TikTok.
Yeah, but it's true, because that should really be like the natural path we take, right? Like the one that we want, and yet we never feel like we're allowed to do that. It's so twisted, unfortunately.
No, it is. It very much is.
Yeah. You mentioned your online classes and your online studio. You also have in some of your videos a special cat guest, the Yogi cat.
Oh, I love him.
A black cat, of course, because you're a witch. Was that on purpose, by the way?
No, I manifested. He's the love of my life. He's my little soulmate. I manifested that in my life. I'm telling you now. It was always, when I look back on all my like inspiration and manifesting boards, there's always a black cat on there. But getting him really was an accident. My husband was away with work, and we have a dog. We have my lovely little Luna. And a cat, I don't know if it's very random, but a cat came up, a kitten, for free on Facebook in my local village. And I knew the person, so I said to my husband, let's get a cat. And he was, basically, he talked me down, and he was like, I don't think it's a good idea at the moment, because we're going on holiday in a week. And I was like, yes, it's not a good idea. I completely agree with you. And then so I messaged the person saying, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to pick him up. And she said to me, oh, no worries. I just hope he finds a home soon. And I don't know what happened to me, but I literally messaged back saying, I'll be there in 5 minutes. And drove, I picked him up, and then phoned my husband on FaceTime and was just holding the cat up. It was like, what have you done? But Ro is I always say that my dog is like my husband's mistress. Like, they are best friends. Luna loves my husband so much. We're roommates. I don't get a look in, but that cat is my love. We are on the same level. He sleeps on my head. We sleep cheek to cheek. I could call him in from the garden and he'll come running. He's a true witch's cat. He's so naughty, but I love him so deeply.
So what's his name?
His name is Ro, but his full name is Roanoke.
Okay.
Yeah, so Roanoke is historical conspiracy theory,
Okay.
which is I know I sound crazy. I was obsessed with this at the moment when the time we got him. So Roanoke was the first colony that landed in America, and they mysteriously disappeared. They don't know whatever happened to this colony.
Wow.
And to this day they don't know. All they found, the leader basically left because they were going through a famine, so he left, go back to England, and then when he returned a few months later, the colony was completely gone. All the houses had been deconstructed, and there was no trace of them. There was no bodies, there was no sign of attack. They just completely disappeared, and to this day they don't know what happened to the colony. There's rumors and stuff, but every year they do like a play on Roanoke about the disappearance. And there's a TV program called American Horror Story, and one of their seasons was focused on Roanoke, and I became obsessed. And so Pusstat, he got named Roanoke, but nobody knew. I sounded nuts when I said it, so I had to shorten it to Ro. But he is Roanoke because he disappears for hours a day, so I feel like it suits him.
Well, I hope he never disappears for good.
Oh my God, no.
That
Oh
would
my
be
God.
that would be
Oh
really
my God.
sad.
Mm. Well, he's too obsessed with food to disappear fully. He'll come back for food.
As a lot of cats are. It's
Oh,
really,
but I
I feel
love him.
that's the purpose of their lives, really.
Oh, I love it. When I come back, I'm coming back as a cat. They have a good life. I love a cat. He is my childhood dream. I always grew up with cats, and to have a cat of my own, honestly, every morning, oh, I just love him so much.
Aww. And in connection with witchcraft, there is this, a cliche of a black cat and a witch, just like you mentioned. Based on your study of history of witchcraft, is there anything about that? Like, why is that? Why are black cats connected to witches?
Yeah, I mean, they're so deeply linked to witchcraft in the terms of, black cats are the least likely cat to ever be adopted due to the fact that people associate them with bad luck. But in Celtic culture, which is, kind of the Welsh culture, they are seen as good luck. They're seen as safeguarding homes and protection. So it basically comes from medieval England. I think from my research that I did, I had to remind myself for this podcast, the earliest recollection was in 13th century, where the Catholic Church wrote a document, I think it's called Vox in Rama, about witchcraft. And in it, they said that the devil appeared in black fur, looking like a cat. And this has progressed then to when the witch hunts were happening. And one of the ways of determining a witch was if she had a familiar. So a familiar is basically an animal companion that it was believed was a demonic presence in an animal form. So it came in the shape of like hares, cats, dogs, etc., or birds. And, these would then associated as being kind of like the harbinger, I don't know if I say that word correctly, of hell type thing. So this has just progressed then. It's just continued. And then, when with Halloween and stuff, it's just an easy image to bring out, isn't it? But I think it depends what culture. Yeah, in Celtic culture, black cats particularly are seen as things that safeguard homes and they bring in good luck. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Black cats. But yeah, it always makes me sad that I read a piece once. I don't know if it's true, but I read it on the internet, so it must be true. That in many shelters don't allow the adoption of black cats during September and October.
What?
Yeah, due to their association with witchcraft, that many people will be harmful to a black cat, so they'll adopt a black cat in order to be harmful. So they won't.
Gosh.
I know, so they won't allow the adoption of it, which is crazy. So yeah, it is crazy. Even now, people say about Ro, about him being bad luck, and I'm always like, that's nuts. That you say you don't believe in witchcraft, but you're worried about my black cat.
Yeah, on the other hand, I have recently read that black cats are being adopted more now, thanks to the movie Flow, where there is a black cat.
That's Oh,
So
is
I'm
that
like,
true?
yay.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh my God, that's such good news. Because
And
black
there's
cats
a,
are so gorgeous.
yeah, they are like they really fascinate me
Oh, I love
exactly
them.
with their blackness and their usual, well, depends on the color of the eyes, but like when they have like these green eyes and that
Yeah,
black face, it's so
yeah.
fascinating.
I find, yeah, I love, because to get a completely black cat is actually very rare. You know, so every time, whenever Rose lying down, I'm brushing him. I always say to him, like, look at your lovely fur, because he's completely, his nose is black. There's no
Mm.
white on him. It is, but we have several black cats in my village, and they're very hard to distinguish if they're completely black.
Yeah.
There's been many times where my husband and I have been walking the dog, and there's been a black cat on the wall, and we're like, is that our black cat? And then so we'll pick up Luna and then just it's so bad. We'll hold the dog towards the cat. If the cat does not hiss, then it's our cat. If the cat hisses, then it's not our cat.
I was actually fostering for a moment for like a week or something a litter of black kittens. It was impossible to distinguish them.
Oh my God, that's my dream.
We
Oh
had
my God, I
to
don't know
like,
how you gave him back.
well, because I had three cats of my own already.
You're living the dream. This is the dream.
But yeah, but then the shelter that they were originally from, they put like a little like not ribbons, but like you know, I colored they were in colors because they were too tiny, but they something like that with a different color, so we would be
Yeah.
able to tell them apart.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It really is
Yes,
really difficult. There's
yes,
no distinguishing features of a black cat. Like
yeah.
they all do look exactly the same. And I feel guilty every time that I don't know if it's my cat or not. Every time. Honestly. Oh, I love like, oh my God, a house of black kittens is my absolute dream. I would never leave the house. That's all I can manifest now as I grow older in my witchcraft. I want to be a home that just has lots of black cats.
Well, I want definitely a home with a lot of cats, and I don't really care about the colors, but there's something very special about gingers as well, for example. They're very unique.
Yes, they are unique. They're a little bit crazy. My best friend has a ginger cat, and he is so cute, but I never know if I trust him. I never every time I've cat sat and dog sat, I'm always like, I never know if I trust you, Ronnie. You're a little bit devilish. I never know what he does with this little crazy ginger cat uh personality.
They're very smart, I find, like very smart
They're
and
so
very much
smart.
like dogs a little bit.
Yeah.
Like my dad has I mean, I have a ginger cat as well, but my ginger cat is very much like he's just a baby. But my dad
No.
has a ginger cat who literally was like a dog. They would go for walks without a harness though. And
Oh,
they
I
would go
love
for a
that.
beer together, and it's like, yeah,
That's
it's like
amazing.
it's a ginger thing, really.
Oh, I love that. I just think cats are amazing.
Yeah.
I've forgotten because I hadn't had a cat for a long time after my childhood cat died, and obviously when I moved into my own home, we had Luna. So when I got a cat, I forgot how scatty they are. That you never like, they'll just, he'll be lying on me for hours. You make one tiny movement, and he gets so annoyed, and he'll just walk off. Like you just never know what's going to push him over the edge. I like it. It's like it's a little bit temperamental. I never know how he's going to respond to something. I'm always trying to please him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're the slaves, we're the servants.
We are full on slaves, but my cat seems to have picked up uh, a lot of my dog's traits. I mean, they are best friends. They sleep in the same bed together, and
Oh,
it is very, very sweet. Whenever we go on holiday, my dog stays with my father-in-law, and the cat goes for cattery, just for keep them safe and stuff like that. And whenever they get reunited, they're so happy to see each other. But
hmm.
we always laugh that at night, when we let the dog out for like a bedtime wee, the cat will get up with the dog. The cat will go and eat his food, and then they'll walk up the stairs together, and they'll get into bed together. It's
Oh.
every now and again I say to Sam, I'm always like, I don't know how we manage this. We look like a crazy little family.
It is the season of the witch, and you have an amazing yoga program for October called Wake the Witch. Is it the third year in a row or more?
I It's either the third or the fourth. I think it could be fourth, but I don't know if
Okay.
I count the first one because the first one was just 7 days, but it's the third year of doing 30 days of yoga
Mhm.
for Wake
So,
the Witch.
so can you tell us a bit more about that and invite our listeners to join you in the
Oh my
program?
God, yes, come and join me. Welcome to Season the Witch. So Wake the Witch is inspired obviously by this season, by this move into autumn, and it is 30 days of yoga where we explore our magic by connecting to elemental witchcraft. So each week there's a new chapter. We go through earth, air, fire, water, and then finally the witch. And it's all about kind of awakening your magic, about stepping into this new season with this kind of sense of renewal, leaving behind anything that doesn't serve you. So when we come up to kind of Samhain to Halloween, often referred to as the Witch's New Year, you feel fully awakened in your power. And we do this through dynamic yoga, through yin and softer yoga. And this year, I even have the wonderful goddess, my essential rituals, to do sound baths.
Mm.
So I'm so excited. Each day, the coven member, the witch, will gain access to a yoga practice, a oracle card reading, a journal prompt, and then a ritual inspired by the yoga practice. So by the end of the 30 days, you have a whole collection of yoga and rituals and journal prompts that you can come back to whenever you need, that kind of boost in kind of energy and in boost in kind of that witchiness, that witch intuition. So I'm so excited. I love Wake the Witch. Each year it gets bigger and I just love it. It feels so good to kind of come together from people all around the world with this one kind of love of yoga and of witchcraft. And it's just so inspiring. I love it so, so much. So, yes, come join us. It launches on I mean, you can sign up now, but it officially starts on the 1st of October, of course. And it's going to be amazing. I'm so, so excited about this year. I'm so excited.
So would you say it's a good introduction to witchcraft as well for people who are like interested?
Yes, it's perfect. If you are looking to kind of like dip your toes in the magic kind of journey and explore, it is ideal for that. You can make it as witchy or as less witchy as you like. You don't have to do the rituals, but each day the flow is inspired by something in witchcraft. For example, I have a flow called So Mote It Be, which speaks about the power of words. And then I have another flow focused on about remembrance and remembering your power. So it's an amazing way to kind of just see how magic and witchcraft feels to you, because you might love it, you might hate it, and that's all good. It's an open space where you can kind of just explore something new, try something new in a safe, friendly space.
And if people join you for the program and love it, you then have a membership as well. Could you tell
Yes.
us about that too?
Yes, so I have a monthly membership called Magic Through Movement, where we flow for an hour each week on kind of pre-recorded flow, so you can fit them into your lifestyle. And yeah, this is something that happens every month then, and it has done for quite a number of years. So each month we have a new theme. We've just finished Defying Gravity, which was a month focused on um, arm balances and inversions and alternatives to it. So it is, yeah, it's an amazing space where we come together throughout the month. We have a private chat then where we all speak and stuff like that, and it's a wonderful space to again maybe dip your toes into kind of witchcraft and to explore your yoga journey. It is very gorgeous.
All right. You mentioned you love autumn naturally and October. What is your favorite thing about this season, apart from the connection with the witchcraft?
I just see autumn as very much kind of like a guilt-free season. It's
Mm.
the time after the summer where everyone's busy, just before the Christmas chaos, where it feels maybe to me that you have a little bit more time to kind of be with
Mhm.
yourself. I live in quite a touristy area, so it's very busy in the summer. So when everyone leaves in September, it's like my town takes a big sigh and everyone kind of
Mm.
settles into the routine. And it's a time where I feel like my husband and I, we have a thing called Sacred Sundays where when he's not away and when I'm off from work, we go out for the day and we go and visit some local castles, which I love, and then we
Mm.
explore a new area to walk in. And it just feels like a time where I have my time back and I can
Mm.
just explore the world around me. And embrace this sense of renewal, really. Like, the leaves are falling and it feels like I'm renewing myself. I very much treat it like a New Year's autumn. Very much so.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you start to live, like, I very much, I have a lot of friends and people I know who really mourn the loss of summer, which is very fair enough. But a few years ago, I made the commitment to moving seasonally and embracing the energy of what each season should bring. And when I did, I very much felt like my anxiety was a lot less because I wasn't fighting autumn and winter or dreading it. I was just allowing myself to go with the energies and what they represent. And autumn is very much a time of kind of death, in a sense, like a spiritual death, and not in a frightening way, but just in the sense of the nights grow darker, the leaves start to fall, and it really invites you to kind of tune in and to reflect on everything that you've grown and you've harvested over the year so far, and allow yourself to kind of shed away anything that just doesn't serve you and anything that's been weighing you down. So when spring comes around, you can grow again and you move into like a new spiritual aspect. You gain a new ring, like in trees, each ring is a little chapter. You gain a new ring, you gain a new chapter. And I think there's something very calming when you allow yourself to embrace the seasons.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's very interesting listening to what you were just saying. I just realized that for me, autumn and October especially is also a time when I am at my most creative. And as a writer, for me, that's the time I'm most inspired to write, but mostly not so much nonfiction, which I write most of the time, but fiction. I
I
come
love
up
that.
with all these ideas for stories. And something that you just said made me think that maybe that's because on the soul level, I am a writer, and in autumn, everything else falls away, sort of, and that my true self comes to the
Mm,
surface. It's really
mm.
interesting. I never thought about that before, actually.
Yeah, well, it's considered a time, from the equinox, from the autumn equinox, from Mabon to Samhain to Halloween, the veil is thinning.
Mm,
So this idea between the spiritual and the earthly world is becoming thin, that boundary. And it is a time where we start to either receive messages or see signs, but we also feel inspired because we are very much in tune with our
mm,
spiritual self. It's almost like it's woken up. And I think autumn, like I said, guilt-free, so it allows you to sit there
mm,
and not embrace boredom, but have a little less to do. So those ideas spark up. And because you're listening to yourself, you're able to hear them. And I completely agree with you. Autumn is always the time that I feel most inspired, and I make most of my plans for the year ahead. And I love that. I love. There's nothing better than, you know, turning lo-fi on, having the right light in the candle, and then just sitting there and letting ideas come out for whatever it might be.
mm.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love that.
Speaking of which, some of your favorite ways to slow down, apart from yoga.
Yoga. So, yeah, it's always my way to slow down, to be fair, in the autumn. Do you know what? It's really basic things. Like, it doesn't. I always say to people, like, slowing down or self-care does not have to be complicated. Like, I'm not somebody who's going to spend a lot of money on self-care. You know, like, lost my words. Like I said, summer's very busy around here, and I'm working a lot. My husband's away a lot with his work, so autumn is very quiet. So I dedicate Sundays to lie-ins. I wake up, I have breakfast in bed, and like the queen I am, and a cup of tea, and I will lie in bed and read for hours with
Wow.
I make no plans. I do all my work in the week, so I don't have to do anything on a Sunday, except maybe we go for our sacred Sundays, we go for our walk in the afternoon. But that is it. I look forward to Sundays of just lying in bed and reading and not forcing myself to get up. Again, like it said, like it's this pressure that you've got to get up every morning. You've got to be constantly on that grind. And I think when you are self-employed, or there's a lot of pressure to work all the
Mhm.
time. And
Yeah.
last year I was very burnt out by pushing myself too far and constantly working. And whereas just lying in bed on a Sunday, it's so simple with a cup of tea and a book.
Mm.
It's such joy to me, and that really does represent kind of slowing down, slow mornings like that. It's very simple, but that is my favorite way. And you know, in Wales, it's often raining. So being in bed, it's raining, cup of tea. Oh my God, it's pure
What sort
delight,
of
honestly.
That's my dream Sunday, but I never managed to do that actually. So,
Honestly, make it a ritual. Like it's so difficult to do. But
yeah.
even if you dedicate it like once a month to just doing it,
Mm,
be like, this Sunday, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to make myself a cup of tea and I'll come back to bed. Honestly, the joy it sparks is
mm.
unreal. It's unreal. It's, oh, I love it.
If you enjoyed our conversation with the Yogi Witch, Bethany Ellison, and you would like to, discover some magic for yourself, or as she says, return to your magic, make sure to join the Wake the Witch program that we discussed. It's not too late to join. It started on the 1st of October, but you can definitely catch up or conclude it in your own time, as you will have access to it for an entire year. Make sure to also follow Bethany on her Instagram at the Yogi Witch. Follow her YouTube channel for some free content, and you can also join her membership and be part of her coven. All the links are in the show notes. The less light there is, the more the need for protective spells increases. In folk tradition, home or field scarecrows are made at this time of year to ward off the forces of darkness and protect us from adversity. And also from all the spooky creatures that may appear with the approach of Halloween, when the veil between our worlds is the thinnest. Talking of protecting ourselves, there's one powerful helper we all know which can help us ward off any evil and even any negative energy: the humble chestnut. It was believed that the chestnut has the power of the sun and can shine even in the dark. It will protect you from slander and curses. So next time you go for a walk, look for chestnuts and take some with you. Once you bring them home, place them in a bowl that you place by the main entrance or under your bed. You can also carry the chestnut in your pocket, your handbag, or in the car, or even in a pram. The chestnut drives away negative energy and can even disrupt the negative radiation of the Earth zone. No wonder I'm always so pleased to see them and so attracted to the magical chestnuts. An old custom that I am so glad is coming back is flying paper kites in the fall. The paper kites take our wishes to the skies. Make your own kite and write one big wish on the paper. Fold the paper and send it with the kite to carry it across the sky. As the kite flies, the wish will be spread across the skies and perhaps delivered to the heavens above. And who knows what can happen then? It is said that when you finish flying your kite, you should burn your wish and leave the ashes in the field. But I say keep your wish close to you, so you get identified as its owner and the universe knows where to deliver. Last month, we talked about the beautiful apples and all the deliciousness we can create with them, which to me is witchcraft itself. And while there's still very, very much part of October, let's take a moment to appreciate pears this time. Pears are one of the most common fruit in the Czech Republic after apples and have been grown in our country for hundreds of years, although their original homeland is probably the hot regions of Asia. The beautiful pears are rich in B vitamins as well as many minerals and contain lots of fiber, which is especially needed at this time of year. And mainly, they taste just wonderful. So make sure to make pears part of your diet this month, and perhaps create some beautiful pies with them too. Don't make it all about the pumpkins, although I love pumpkins and everything pumpkin spice, don't get me wrong, but there is so much more this time of the year. I thought it would be a good idea to leave you today with some cozy reading tip. Since we talked a lot about magic today, as well as witchcraft and witches and their cats, their familiars, I thought, why not bring a book that combines all of this too? So the book I want to recommend today is The Cat Dragon by Samantha Birch. It's a cozy fantasy, which I never really read, but because it has cat dragons, witches, pumpkins, and all the October coziness, for obvious reasons, I was attracted to it. And I am about 70% in, and I'm really enjoying the adventure. So listen up for the description of the story. In the whimsical world of Tanglewood Valley, magic flows like the seasons, and every witch has her cat dragon, except Aloysia Pepperwick. She's far from bonding with her fiery feline familiar, and with her magical farm and chaos, her prattling pumpkin patch meddling in her life, and the annual harvest festival to prepare for, Aloysia has enough to handle, even before her best friend's insufferable brother, Hollis, brings danger and distraction to her door. When she and Hollis are whisked away on a quest to a mysterious mountain, Aloysia must contend with magic, mayhem, and a spark she never expected. How exciting that sounds. I mean, it's got everything. October, pumpkins, witches, cats, most importantly, even though they are cat dragons. I mean, isn't that even better? And yeah, an adventure and also a romance. I will read you a short snippet from the book as well. And this is from chapter 2, where Aloysia is once again trying to get her cat familiar. "My dear witch," he said, with an unfamiliar deference that made her blush harder than ever. He held out a forearm to which clung, by both full sets of front claws, a lilac-colored Dremel kitten. "This single-fanged, curl-tongued quadwing is most pleased to make your acquaintance. Cushion." This last to Ryuka, he appeared with said item and placed it in Aloysia's lap before her father allowed the cat dragon to drop onto it. The familiar took an immediate interest, gazing up at Aloysia and cocking its head from side to side before getting up on its hind legs and pressing its front paws against her chest. Her chin wobbled at its beauty, and its long pink forked tongue unfurled to lick her just as Mr. Kingioso barked a refusal, and the cat dragon was swept away. The two on his shoulders met the same fate, one of them barely grazing the cushion before he cried out, "Ah, ridiculous!" and replaced it with the fourth, a velvet-pawed, pink-clawed long hair, who purred insistently at Aloysia. She knew what Mr. Kingioso was waiting for, of course. Over the years, she'd done this dance a dozen times. It was the reason Ryuka was now fidgeting gently beside him, elbows out, with a small reddish-brown tortoiseshell brush held tight in both hands. The flickering, as it was called when magic user and cat dragon first connected, the most important stage before 3 uninterrupted days together sealed their lifelong bond, involved 3 immutable steps. First, the familiar must be allowed to assess its prospect by whatever means it deemed appropriate. Second, trust was indicated by the creature rolling onto its back to show its stomach. Tail lowered and all 4 limbs slack. At this point, it was acceptable for the witch or wizard to stroke or otherwise fuss the bared belly. Third, and finally, should this prove acceptable, the cat dragon would right itself, the ritual brush would be passed, and the magic user would use it to stroke the cat dragon from the top of the head to the tip of the tail. But here was where it became purely theoretical to her. A successful match, the books said, will reveal itself when the breeze becomes lightning. Even as an 8-year-old, she known this had to be a metaphor, or else, she'd reasoned, Mr. Kingioso's shop would have required a lot more mops. She'd glanced instinctively over at the side door. The 8-year-old part of her apparently is still keen to make certain about the nature of Mr. Kingioso's cleaning supplies, when Ryuka squeaked. Aloysia looked quickly back at the girl and saw that her eyes were wide, her little feet running on the spot with excitement. Aloysia followed her gaze to the cat dragon in her lap, which had rolled onto its back. I absolutely love that, and I love cat dragons. I love how they're described in the book because they're just cats, basically. So yeah, it's a really, really fun read. I highly recommend it. As for the promised film tip, it's not going to be a Halloween film tip. I am not much into Halloween movies, and the few ones that I sometimes watch, I shared them in last year's October episode. So feel free to revisit it. But this year, I want to share my all-time favorite rom-com with you, which for me is forever connected with autumn. And that's You've Got Mail with Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks. Even though it really takes place throughout all the seasons, for me, it will always be connected with autumn because that's where the story starts. And also because I used to travel to New York in autumn and listen to the soundtrack and visit the places from the movie. And yes, it's just got a special magic for me. And I find it like a really amazing, cozy, feel-good movie for autumn. So highly recommend it. And also, they just don't make movies like that anymore. Where are these feel-good rom-coms you can watch over and over? They just don't make them as good anymore. And that's it for our October episode of Season 2. If you want more October magic, make sure to revisit Seasons 1, Episode 1, where I not only share the story of the cat coaches, but also many other October well-being tips, traditions, as well as some history of Halloween. I'll see you again on October 31st though, so we will tune to some Halloween magic still, but mostly we'll focus on welcoming in November and slowly start preparing for Christmas. Together with our guest, Lily Hayward, the author of Midwinter's Tale and The Cat of Ely Cottage. So definitely do join us again. Meanwhile, there's lots of good fun waiting for you on my Substack at moneyforce.substack.com, including the new film club I mentioned, new Cat Coach Diaries, and the Positive Mind Club, where we can journal together. So don't forget to subscribe there. By doing so, you will also get all new episodes of Cat Coach Café delivered straight to your inbox. If you would consider leaving a rating, a comment, or follow the Cat Coach Café on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen, we would appreciate it so very much, as it would help us not only reach a wider audience, but also to continue doing what we do and bring you more podcast episodes in the future. Oh, and there are also cozy instrumental playlists waiting for you over on Spotify. October instrumentals for some witchy and magical vibes, and autumn mornings for some of that nostalgia the season brings. All handpicked with love from me to you. All links are in the show notes. I hope you will enjoy them. And that really is all for today. Until next time,
Stay cozy, stay warm, and cuddle those cats of yours.